Ever stop to think about the phone in your hand or the water you drank this morning? They seem totally different, right? But they're connected in a way that's, well, it's gonna define our future. In this explainer, we're gonna break down that critical link between the Earth's resources and, well, us, human development. We'll look at how we define them, use them, and ultimately how we can protect the very foundation of our world.
All right, so here's the plan. First, we're going to get on the same page about what a resource even is. Then, we'll build a framework to help us sort through them all. After that, we'll get into the real nitty-gritty, the problem with land. We'll even take a close look at India's soil story. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at how we can conserve all this for the future.
Okay, let's dive right in. What exactly is a resource? You might think you know, but the answer is probably way broader than you imagine. Let's start with a simple question to get our heads around it.
No, really. Think about it for a second. What have you used today? There's the water for your coffee or tea, obviously, the electricity powering your screen. But what about the lithium in your phone's battery, the cotton in your shirt? Our lives are just built on this incredible web of resources. So what's the magic ingredient that turns a simple thing into a valuable resource? Well, here's the official take. A resource is basically anything out there in our environment that we can use to satisfy our wants and needs. But here are the two magic words: technologically and economically. We have to have the tech to get it, and it has to make economic sense to do so.
And this right here, this is the key idea. Resources aren't just free gifts from nature that are lying around waiting for us. They're a function of what we do. Think about it. Crude oil was just useless black goo for most of human history. It took our ingenuity, our technology, our needs to turn it into a valuable resource. Nature provides the raw stuff, sure, but it's human activity that unlocks its potential.
Okay, so now that we know what a resource is, how do we make sense of them all? Let's build out a bit of a framework to help us categorize everything. So one of the easiest ways to start is by origin. Is it alive or not? You've got your biotic resources, things that come from the biosphere that have life. Forests, fish, even us humans. And then you have the abiotic stuff, all the non-living things like rocks, minerals, soil, and water. Next up, and this one is a really, really big deal. Can we get more of it? Renewable resources are the ones that can be replenished, right? Sunlight, wind, water, they keep coming back. But then you have the non-renewables, things like coal and oil. They took literally millions of years to form, and once we use them up, poof, they're gone for good, at least on any human timescale.
And this chart, this kind of pulls the whole thing together. You can see that big split between natural resources and human-made ones. And under natural, you see all those categories we just talked about. Understanding this whole picture, from renewable wind all the way down to non-recyclable fossil fuels, is absolutely the first step if we're going to manage them smartly.
But, and this is a huge but, who gets to use these resources? That's not an easy question. As this quote points out, when resources get piled up in the hands of just a few people, it can split society right down the middle, into the haves and the have-nots. And that's exactly why resource planning is so incredibly important for a just and stable world. So that brings us to maybe the most fundamental resource of all, one we literally stand on every single day, but often just take for granted: the land itself. And the thing about land is, they're not making any more of it. So if we take India as an example, you can see just how diverse the landscape is. Almost half of it, 43%, is plains. That's your breadbasket, where most of the agriculture happens. Then you've got mountains and plateaus making up the rest. And that's where you find crucial forests, minerals, and the headwaters for the rivers. Every single part plays a vital role. Now check this out. Putting these two charts side by side from 1960 and 2008 tells a really interesting story. You can see how land use has shifted over time. Now, forest cover has actually gone up a bit, which is good news. But look at the land used for things other than agriculture. We're talking buildings, roads, factories. That's gone up too. And something had to give, right? In this case, it was pasture lands. It's a clear picture of the pressures of a growing population and economy. And all that pressure has a consequence. When you use land over and over again without managing it properly, you get land degradation. And it's driven by all these human activities you see here: cutting down forests, letting cattle overgraze, mining without care, and just dumping waste. This isn't just some abstract environmental issue either. It directly threatens the livelihoods of millions of people who depend on that land to survive. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. Let's dig deeper.
moving from the big idea of land to the literal soil right under our feet. You could call it the living skin of the earth. See, soil isn't just dirt. It's this incredibly complex, layered living system. This profile here shows you how it's built, from that rich, dark topsoil full of organic matter all the way down to the solid bedrock. It is a renewable resource, technically, but it can take hundreds, even thousands of years to form just 1 inch of topsoil. And India has this amazing variety of soils. You've got the alluvial soils in the north, which are super fertile, perfect for growing things like paddy and wheat. Then there's the famous black soil, also called Regier soil. It's fantastic at holding moisture, which is why it's ideal for cotton. Every different soil type has its own personality, its own story. But all that precious topsoil is incredibly vulnerable. Soil erosion, which is basically soil being carried away by wind or water, is a huge problem. Sometimes it's really dramatic, like these deep gullies being carved into the landscape. Other times it's a slower, sneakier process where the top layer is just gradually removed. But either way, the result is the same. Fertile land turns into useless wasteland. So, that sounds pretty bleak, right? How do we fight back against all this degradation and erosion? Well, the good news is we actually know how. We have the solutions. We have a whole toolkit of proven methods, and really, it all comes down to working smarter with nature, not against it. We're talking about things that are powerful, but also pretty straightforward. Planting more trees and managing grazing, creating shelter belts of trees to block the wind, using thorny bushes to hold sand dunes in place, making sure mining is done responsibly, and of course, properly treating industrial waste instead of just dumping it. And here you can see what this stuff actually looks like in the real world. On the left, that's contour plowing. By plowing along the curves of the hill instead of up and down, you slow the water down and let it soak in. And on the right, you see shelter belts, just rows of trees that act as a natural windbreak. These aren't high-tech, crazy ideas. They're practical, effective ways to protect our soil using the power of nature itself. Which brings us right back to where we started. If our actions, our choices, and our technology are what turn the neutral stuff of the planet into resources, well then the future of our land, our soil, and our world really depends on the choices we make next. So the question is, what will our next activity be?